Welcome to the Stand on Your Investment podcast, presented by UC Hunting Properties and Expedition Land Management, where professionals from around the country will dive deep into land management strategies, investing in recreational real estate, and all things hunting.
Welcome back to the Stand on Your Investment podcast. We're going to put a little different spin on today's episode. Normally we're deep diving with an agent or a broker or a team or whatever the case is. Today we're joined with Brandon Wikman and Joe Nawrot out of Southwest Wisconsin. Agent team extraordinaire. That was a new spin on it, right? Yeah.
How you get that on a business card?
Yeah. Ask and you might receive.
Well then.
Yeah. As always, Kurt Headington, joined with Travis Homley and Chris Van Gerpen as well. So, gents, today I want to take some time because I feel like we got a pretty diverse group of diehard bow hunters, gun hunters, deer hunters in general. And here we are, I guess it's late January, early February. We're postseason, right? And a lot of guys think that chasing giant deer is something that happens in the fall. I think we'd all acknowledge it's more of a lifestyle, a passion, a year-round, 24/7, 365 thing. So that said, I want this one to be pretty much open book, perspective, opinion, whatever the case is. Given where we're at in the season, Trav, we'll start with you. What is important? What are we doing now to start setting the stage for next year, future years, whatever? Again, it's February. What are we doing?
Well, I mean, the last couple days, Gerpsy and I have been talking, looking at, buying some fruit trees, looking at some giant miscanthus for plot screening. Yep. Yesterday, or Monday, yesterday, I ordered a bunch of clover to do some frost seeding. Yep. So we're looking at getting the properties prepared.
Starting to get rolling here.
Get rolling. Yep. For the deer coming into summer. The fawns popping out this spring. And we also been talking a little bit about when we're going to stay out of the woods shed hunt. I mean, every one of us want to get in there and start. My nephew, I'm calming him down a little bit because he wants to be out there every day. And
not quite there yet.
The rule of thumb, you bring it up all the time, and pretty much after Valentine's Day is kind of like when it's all right. Because if you bump them, you're going to be buying the sheds from your neighbors. That's where it comes. What it comes down to.
You don't bump them on purpose, hoping that sudden jolt in the running action, and when they jump the neighbor's fence, then you have to jump the neighbor's fence.
Yep.
We're not supposed to talk about that? Okay.
I just cut it so I don't have to jump.
No, and Trev, you hit on a bunch of stuff. I think, and I think it's important to talk about. If you're doing fruit trees, now's the time you got to be thinking about it. You got to get them ordered, or by the time you wait, they're going to be gone. So
especially the good trees,
or anything in volume, right? Like if you're legitimately looking for, I don't even know what they call them. We call them burlap trees, but it's literally as big as you can buy a tree. It's beyond potted.
Bag and burlap.
Yep. Yeah, B&B. There you go. So giant miscanthus, you hit on that as far as a plot screen. Obviously, that's a long-term thing. You put it in the ground once, you nurture it, you get it up out of there, it's there forever. Yeah. But on the flip side, you got to get it ordered, right? It's a live rhizome, I guess, is what you're putting in the ground. So frost seeding right around the corner. Some guys would argue you could start that now and literally, seed on top of the snow and let Mother Nature do its thing.
I see the other day the guy was calling it snow seeding.
Yeah, snow seeding. There you go. Right.
Snow seeding, frost seeding.
Call you what you will. It's going to do the same damn thing.
As long as it goes to the ground and
I've
grows.
been snow seeding corn for a long time. Will that come up? Okay, maybe
Dang stuff won't grow.
No, right on. So you got lots of projects. The one thing I was going to mention, last couple weekends I've done some TSI work, timber stand improvement on my own farm, I guess. And part of that's controlling some invasives, getting after some of the multiflower rows. In my case, I manage a shitty stand of black locust, which is like a never-ending war.
Yeah, for real.
But I'm ahead of it, and I feel like I'm just a couple years from literally, cutting the head off that monster. So that's nice.
That is a beer-worthy accomplishment.
Or 50.
Would you dig a quarry to get rid of it, or what?
No
It's dig it out.
Well, what actually pisses me off is, black locust it's invasive in Iowa, but it was literally brought into Iowa with the right intention at the time, right?
Just like everything else. It
Like
got brought in,
all that
intentions, and all of a sudden.
We can go through
Yeah.
all that stuff that was brought in.
Originally, the farmers brought it in, planted it with, the ability to have crazy fast regrowth, and that stuff's like, you stick a saw in it, it's sparking, it's as hard of wood as you're going to find. So it's firewood. The other thing, and this came literally from my grandpa, that's Crowd 90, he said back in the day it was super well known if you had black locust, that's what you use for your fence posts.
They still use them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
The Amish up in our neck of the woods, they're using, you get all these crooked posts, they're
right.
black locust.
Yep.
Now, on that note, little black locust lesson for anybody listening. If you cut a black locust tree down, because it's a central rhizome as well, you're going to get for every one you cut, I'll bet 100 shoots come up. Yep. And it will be clustery, and it actually kind of looks like good cover. It's not. You don't want them. So just be careful if you're going to clear an area. If it's got black locust, if you cut it, get ready to manage it.
So what would you suggest doing once you cut it?
Yeah, so I think it depends on size. I had some that were mature, probably 14-inch diameter trees. Those I would not recommend cutting. I actually double girdle it. So I girdle the tree approximately 10 to 12 inches, stack the girdles, and then I'm treating it with a mix of Milestone, and I'm using a bark oil blue as a surfactant, and to just be able to visibly see which trees I've hit, where I hit them, whatever.
And not miss that one spot on the backside of the tree.
Literally, yeah. Do not miss a spot. But
all the way around.
Very effective, that double girdle with the treatment. It does seem like regardless how big that tree is, it smokes it almost instantly. So that's how I handle the bigger trees. You get less than about a 4-inch diameter tree. You could just bark spray it if they're dormant like right now. Otherwise, I will cut those. Anything probably 4 inches or less in diameter, I'll take them all the way down. I treat the stump with the exact same stuff, mix of Milestone and bark oil blue. And then anything that I get regrowth, because heaven forbid you miss treating one of them, you're going to get some regrowth. I'll come back over those typically in July and hit the leaves. And same thing I'm using. At that point, I'm just using Milestone and water. But you could use Milestone and diesel or but I've had great luck with Milestone, and I think the originally I got onto that partly because I had a conservation guy mention a white paper that came out of, I think, Wisconsin's DNR, and they'd been battling it, and they had a paper published that was kind of what they were using to keep it at bay, and it does work well, very well. I had a ton of it before I started the battle. Yeah, so on the topic of black locust, it's a pain in the butt, but you don't want to get rid of it. Now's the time to manage it because the sap's not flowing. I would not suggest trying to manage it basically from March till about the end of July. Once the end of July rolls around, you're closing in on the tree starting to reseed, and that's when you can hammer it, and it'll suck all the chemical in and kill it. So black locust lesson of the day. Gerbsy, I know you said you got some logging projects going on a couple of the farms too.
Yeah, we have loggers in now. It's a little early. Normally I try to tell them they can't come until after everything's dropped. This particular one, I needed to go through a field that I could not mess with at all being soft. So cold strip coming in. It's like, all right, we got to go log it, get in, out, whatever. But even then, I was in there 4 days ago. They're bucking logs in the open field. I had 2 skidders going on one knob, and I was walking around with Dan, who's the guy that manages the farms with me, on the other knob, and deer are just like walking around between us, like, "Hey, what are you doing?"
Yeah, what are
you
you doing
know, they're like, They just dropped this nice oak tree. I want to eat these buds. Get out of my way. You know? So it was very interesting, that one. And usually when we're logging, we are treating as we log because we have prickly ash, multi-flower rose. I don't have too many farms with buckthorn, but you got a little bit of that to deal with here and there. And we're usually a treat 1 week, log the next, and then drop. If you try to treat after you're logging, guys aren't really too happy with you having to crawl under the tops and get at stuff. And for us, it's usually a remedy and diesel mixture.
And that's a basil spray, obviously.
Yeah, everything I do is basil spray. You can kill some very large trees with basil spray, and so and some guys do the hack and squirt method, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I found, yes, does hack and squirt work? Oh yeah, it does. But I don't have to carry a hatchet with me and go around and hack them and then squirt. I can just squirt them and they're done.
And be done with it. Yeah.
Walk
Way
away.
more efficient.
Yeah. Time-wise, time, energy, and I get the same result.
Yeah. And that's what we're looking for at the end of the day. Just
And we got that project out on that waterway where we work with actually a bank, and they have a trust, and they're in charge of keeping the government contracts up to
They're in
date.
essence playing farm manager, right?
Yeah.
But just due to the nature of their business being in banking, they sub that work out, whether it's, a controlled burn or, tree removal or to Gerpsy's point, taking care of some invasives. But
Like in that one, we'll end up, we basil sprayed a bunch of that stuff, and so all the big stuff. But when you're in CRP grass, all those little trees, little whips that are down there, you can't see it. So it was time to burn their CRP anyway, so we went and basil sprayed all the stuff that was too tall to die from a fire. We'll come in spring once things have budded out a little bit and burn it, and we'll kill all the little stuff, and that should clean it up really well.
yeah.
and I was going to mention too, Gerps, not to jump over it, but I heard you the other day, instructing somebody on doing a tree planting at the same time as logging's on our mind, right? I mean, I think we'd all agree that deer 100% follow a chainsaw. You're going to get a lot of regen and whatnot, but with that, it can be bad, right? So if you don't have good seed trees there or little oaks, let's say, coming through, you may have to introduce them. But Gerbsy actually gave a client of ours kind of a tip, and he said, go in and plant the whips ahead of logging and then come behind it, do your logging activity, and literally drop the tops on little trees.
Just to protect them.
You got it. Instead of, logging and then trying to go in and plant the trees, you're going to get the same result, except you're maximizing your time and efficiency doing it ahead of having a mess, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense.
We did, in our property, it was just purchased this spring, and it was already harvested, so we got 48 bushel of white acorns.
Yeah, that was a project, right?
I hate acorns. But we direct seeded them into the ground. We spread a lot to frost seed, but a lot of the areas we concentrated on putting more into were where the downfalls were.
Yep.
And now we're going to go back and, after talking with Gerpsy the other day, in the maples, the small maples, the 6 to 8 inches that are sprouting out, we're going to drop those right down to protect those acorns from getting chowed on, and hopefully they sprout and we didn't waste a lot of time.
Well, and if you actually just leave the maples cut like that, you'll get a lot of shoots coming off those, and that all turns into good woody browse too. So
our method this year is to take pressure off those acorns that we plant. It's we're gonna fence some areas because it isn't a managed forest program, so we have to have so much production and in given areas. So we're it's a process.
Yep. How about you guys? What do you guys got going this winter? I mean, as far as prep work for next season.
So like Travis mentioned it, we're looking at, what did you say, snow seeding?
Snow seeding, not frost seeding.
Frost seeding, yeah. So that's on the agenda. What I'd like to do personally is this is kind of cabin fever time, especially if you're in Wisconsin. Miserable. It's really, really.
Or Iowa.
It was
really
minus
miserable.
26 when I opened my
Yeah.
garage door this morning.
It
It's like,
really
whew.
sucks, man. So I like to just take a mental deep dive into, my plan from the previous year. Take a look at it. What worked? What didn't? What can I add to it? And I just start, bullet pointing an outline of, here's what worked. Here's what I want to do this year for this specific property. I had a lot of success on this particular stand, and just kind of, go through all my notes and just kind of sit back, take it all in. So when the time comes, we can get back after it.
How about you, Joe? You got any projects going?
I just got my tree order placed last week. Last year was a little bit late. I waited till spring and
Lesson
got
learned?
three.
Yeah.
Still got 300 trees in last year, but this year I got 200 more on the way. Just creating a little bit of screen along the road, just for a few years down the road.
What
Try
What
to
kind
get
of
that
tree?
privacy
What kind of
screen.
trees, Joe?
White spruce and Norway spruce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those ones just to alternate those, and then the next project I got coming up is probably after Valentine's Day. Try not to go in the woods too much yet, like you guys are saying, without bumping any deer. I got a bunch of jack pines
Oh, yeah.
that I started on last year in some pockets, just going in and taking areas right out, just taking every jack pine right out, leave one random one here and there. It's starting to open up on the ground a little bit, so I need to get some of those areas thickened back up.
Yep.
Sure.
And then some spots for access, just create new trails. Got the DR mower, so there's a couple spots I need to kind of clear up, get some trees out of the way for access points for this next fall, and
Right on.
hopefully be a little bit ahead
Well,
of the game.
now that Brandon bought the new cab tractor, you got a cab tractor to use, huh?
This is true. This is true.
Hey, he's thinking to
Be a little
himself,
more
"You gotta let
Damn.
Don't mind the scratches. It's no big deal.
Here's the keys, I guess.
That'll make it nicer for planting switchgrass.
Well,
too.
Brandon doesn't
That's
mind.
right.
Joe's a man that doesn't like scratches on anything.
gotcha.
You know,
Yeah.
Brandon and I are just, get her done.
They're
and-
just tools.
Just tools. They're meant to be worked.
See what we
Expensive
can bust.
tools.
See what we can break today.
I didn't even know that could break. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can.
Oh yeah.
And then and then maybe in June, some switchgrass.
Going in the
Drill
ground.
some of that
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how many grass projects we have between burning and new seedings. It's the
couple
list is
people-
long for this.
A
spring.
guy called today on the way up here, and Kurt turns to me and he goes, "We got to look at this list because it's getting long."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And well, it's getting. I mean, now with insurance stuff, people are like, "I don't want to deal with it." More and more people are not burning if you don't have insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And insurance.
or they've heard the horror story, right?
Yeah.
You know,
I think
Farmer Joe tried burning.
One got away.
Right.
Yeah, it only takes one to get away.
Yeah,
I
it
mean, and
does.
then guys are pretty gun shy. But I mean, Brandon hit on a point earlier. I mean, this time of year is your cabin fever time, and it's tough. And you're doing what you can. If you got logging projects or
Yeah.
timber projects, you got to get after them. But for the most part, I would agree the best thing to do this time of year is just legitimately reflect on what happened, what deer you got left, where they're at, how do I get after them for next year.
Yep.
Because if you don't do it, you'll get into, oh my God, I got to plant. Like I got to plant my trees now. I got to plant my
No,
grass. I
right.
got to plant, and then you're just in work mode.
Yep.
And it's hard to
Get
sit
your-
back and
yeah.
actually think about it.
Get your itinerary
And you're trying to
figured
rush
out,
it.
so then you can say, all right, this week I got this week I got to do that, and have a list made so you come to the party ready to roll.
And being realistic on
And
how
being-
much time,
yeah,
right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
these projects are time
They
intensive.
take time.
They're fun, but they're time consuming.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
There's some plans I've laid out and then went back and looked at and go, there ain't no way.
It sounds good on paper.
Yeah, paper, this is
Yeah.
awesome.
You know, that actually brings up I was just thinking about this. You know, the one thing I've got better at for sure, and this is just personally, if I know I let a deer go and I know he made it, right now is when I'll start going back through the pictures I saved to him and trying to connect dots on, okay, he went through here on October 18th, and you can go back and check wind direction, barometric pressure, moon phase. I don't care what
Yeah.
element you're looking at, but these are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
So 9 times out of 10, if I have one, oh boy, he hit this scrape, he was in this area, I got a daylight picture of him, whatever the case is, that can actually play into some of this planning on off-season prep.
It's funny you say that because I've got a farm in Viola, northwest Richland County, and the last 3 years, you'll get some deer, mid-November that they're not homeboys. These guys are traveling a ways.
Yep.
And within that same week, they always show up in this particular spot, and then they're here for, like I said, a cup of coffee for a day or two, and then they're gone.
Yep.
It's the funniest damn thing.
And it's usually right down to the day.
It is.
A year later,
is.
they're there.
And I think, I don't know, right? I mean, I don't know if anyone truly knows, but I would probably take a stab at this and say you have a resident doe
That comes into
that will cycle almost within a 24-hour cycle year in and year out. And when she smells right, you're seeing the boys.
Yep.
The neighbors are coming for a visit.
It's funny. It's on the date. It's
But if
how
you
it
know
works.
that,
if you know that,
powerful.
Yep.
Well, you got to take every advantage you can.
Oh, good Lord, yeah.
I mean, they're a coyote away from being in the next county, even if they're on that doe.
Oh, yeah.
So you take all those little things and you just try to add them up. Like going back through your pictures and going, okay, he was here between this date and this date the last few years, or even if he's on your same farm, he moved from this area of the farm to this area of the farm. All those little minute details that a lot of people just overlook.
Yeah, for sure. And then you'll have, like this year on a farm that I manage in southeast Wisconsin, we had a deer that, 3 years ago we watched. We wanted to grow. The year after, it's like, oh boy, he's almost there, and it's like, oh, it's kill year coming up, and the son of a gun, I had one picture of him in middle of July, and then that deer was a homeboy, gone all year. And all of a sudden, on camera in January 12th, boom, there he showed up. I said, you son of a gun, where have you been?
All season.
All season. So that can always throw a chink into the game plan.
There's no hard, fast rule because otherwise they'd all be dead.
Yeah. It's
There's just
One, I think that's like what you just described is the phenomenon on when a deer gets to 5, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah,
you're talking ultra mature category, right? And I don't even know as a percentage in the states we hunt how many truly get mature, but I'm going to say it's single digit.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Less than 10% ever see a day past 4 years old or whatever, and for good reason. They're big, and they get targeted and they get killed. But it is a phenomenon like that. I mean, I had a deer go missing last year that never showed up. I still don't know to this day if he's dead.
I remember that. Yeah.
Wow.
Don't have his sheds, never found a carcass, what I mean?
Yeah.
But I never got him on camera again either. So I'm just fingers crossed praying he could pop up. But
sometimes all of a sudden it's like, poof, we're back, and it's here we go with the same routine again.
Right. And we have this conversation all the time. Deer are like people, right? Like, why do you go to a bar for 6 months and then switch and go to a different? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I got some ideas.
A lot of variables there.
Yeah. This podcast can get really long, really fast.
His mate died.
Yeah, exactly. Looking for a new one, but no, I love that phenomenon. I love the fact that shed season's right around the corner. Yep. I think everyone's excited about that. I don't know what you guys seen, but it seemed like we went through a pretty rough streak in November and December just with temperatures. Yeah. We thought we had a ton of deer shedding early, at least in Iowa, and I kind of heard it from everybody.
Yep.
Outfitters, just buddies, whatever.
During that Christmas time.
Yeah, like what I would consider our early, late season. Trav, you came down to Iowa and killed one, and I was deathly afraid of dragging that deer into the back of the truck.
You didn't drag anything.
I mean, the truth comes out.
If we're going to talk about the truth, I mean, it was a stressful hunt for Trav.
I know.
I mean, you had to walk 200 yards in.
I had to go up a little knob.
There was, slight incline. I mean, a 30-foot gain in elevation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Well, I guess you did have to climb the ladder into the heated blind.
Oh, we didn't turn the heat on right away, though.
That's how fast the hunt happened. But anyway, but no, I mean, all joking aside, it was literally the first thing I thought of that night was let's not pop this deer's horns off getting him loaded.
For real.
Because we were starting to see it. It had been so cold. But as of late, I'm getting a ton of pictures of bucks packing. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I
Both
don't,
sides.
yeah, I don't know if it's 50-50 on the ground or still holding, but there's a lot of horns on
It
it.
was
still.
strange. Lost them like before January. For Iowa, January 10th, the end day. So lost a bunch before that, thinking, oh, this is going to be an early shed season.
Right.
And now it's like they quit shedding in that early first couple days of January. They quit.
Yep.
And now everything's still packing. And now I'm assuming now with this cold shot again.
Might drop some.
And it's, I mean, let's be real too. It's also that time of year.
We're getting close.
You know,
We're
now if
getting to
you're
that.
beyond,
Yep.
if you get beyond Valentine's Day, that one's
Yep.
what the heck?
Yeah.
Like, did you glue them on? You know, and I've chased them, and I've chased turkeys in the spring and
Seen
jumped
the
a
shed
buck
run.
up
Oh,
and
yeah.
been like,
Still got-
"What are you?
yep.
What are you still doing packing that thing?"
Yeah. Yep.
You know, so you always have those outliers, but you're 2 weeks away from
Prime time.
90% of them down. So
Well, it's just turned into such a race. You know, I mean, shed hunting's
Yeah,
competitive. Like,
shed hunting has gotten pretty wild over the years.
Oh, it's,
I mean, I've never seen a hobby for many that has everybody just jumps into because anybody can do it.
That's
You
right.
know, you just walk
I mean, when
property.
people
and-
are talking about putting decoy sheds out in their field with GPS trackers,
Guilty.
to get people,
yeah,
yeah, to catch people shed hunting
shed
on their
traps.
property.
Yeah.
It's
there's
it's
going to
wild.
be
It's a commodity.
There's going to be a few days in my next couple weeks that'll have me climbing a tree,
putting cameras
putting
up.
the camera up in a tree, and the shed down on the ground, and in areas that
One,
are
it's-
notorious.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, talk about a free-for-all. Like, a guy that would never trespass in his life, shed season comes around, let's be honest, it's an adult Easter egg hunt. And people lose their minds.
oh yeah.
And I guess I just never understood. I mean, I love picking up sheds as much as anybody,
Yeah.
but if you're never going to be able to pursue that deer,
What's
sense?
it to you?
what in the world?
What gets you off?
Yeah, so fair warning. I think everyone sitting at this table will prosecute a trespasser during shed season. I know I will
Damn right.
every year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. all
I
right.
mean, that deer means a hell of a lot more to me than some random guy just wanting to take a walk in the woods.
well, it's just a fact.
Right.
And,
It's like-
and like I
Especially if he's
said,
not even hunting in that area.
Yeah,
it's
anyway.
just weird.
And it's funny because this person may not trespass during hunting season, but we're not deer hunting. We're just walking the woods
Right.
looking for sheds, and it's
It's
like
only a shed.
it's only a shed. Well, it's only a fence line. It's only a boundary. Like
It's only a ticket. It's only a ticket too.
yeah.
Yep.
One, it's insane. I mean, with cell cameras anymore,
Yeah.
boy, you'd really have to be whacked out of your mind. But I mean, every year we get guys walking around with like face masks on and stuff, and it's like, you got to be kidding
Trying
me.
to be stealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I still see him through the scope fine. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't interfere with that at all. But, all right, so shed season's coming up. I think everyone's stoked about that. The other thing I was going to touch on, and I feel like we somewhat have a resident expert sitting with us, this is tag season. We're starting to move into application time. If you're hunting out of state or going out west or whatever, you got to start paying attention to where you're applying those deadlines, if you're buying points, that sort of thing. Brandon, this one, I'm going to kind of roll the ball to you. I mean, we go out west every year, and it's pretty consistent in what we do in our approach. But you're hunting, I mean, 5, 6, 7 states. How do
Right.
you manage that whole process?
So a lot of people use different firms and services that ping you when you got to draw during this time, because oftentimes, for Illinois, let's say, you have to draw sometime in the spring, late spring, I believe, for their firearm, season. A lot of states are like that. Kansas is one of them. Iowa's another. So personally, I don't have nothing fancy. I just have on my calendar every year. I have an alarm set, so when that time comes, it pings me. Otherwise, my biggest regret was applying for Arizona, actually, for an elk hunt, and I had 4 or 5 years stored up. If you miss 1 year,
You're out.
you're done.
Start over.
So there goes 4 years of my life just down the drain. It's like, so some people will, use, firms that, handle all that for you,
Right.
which wouldn't be a bad idea, especially if you're going out west and doing a lot of those hunts, whether it's mule or elk.
Well, and there's a ton of like, I don't want to say idiosyncrasies to it, but like I think it's a good word because some states have preference.
Yeah.
Some states are a true lottery. Some are a combination of.
Correct.
And just to keep all that straight, if you're truly going after some of the most sought after tags in the country, you better have your ducks in a row.
Well, look at Kansas. Let's talk Kansas. So since COVID, I mean, it was, even though it's a lottery, usually you apply, you're going to get your tag. Over the 2020-21, there's been such a
COVID
race,
push. Yep.
COVID push. So now I got a lot of buddies that draw, and they don't get their tag. So it's taken 2 years instead of, on money.
Right.
So another thing to kind of keep in mind as well.
Date back to 2012 with Kansas. I did the whole thing and forgot to apply in the spring. There was a leftover tag.
Yeah,
in
there
July.
always used to be leftovers.
There- I mean,
People
and
didn't even
now-
realize there was a draw because there's always leftovers. Like they just
Not
would-
anymore.
Not anymore.
No, not anymore.
But, I mean, you look
Nothing
at
good
the
lasts forever, boys.
Adjacent set, units. You used to play that game.
Yeah.
Look at the, the draws, how many draws were done, and look at the adjacent unit. Might not be the unit you're, hunting
Yep.
in, but you can hunt in the adjacent units and kind of play in that
Yeah, as
game.
long as they
and-
touch, you could play,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Right. Well, and out west, there's also that's the one nice thing about those firms is they're responsible to keep up on the changes because some of those point creeps and things out west, they've started to try to do legislation to kind of correct them. I mean, if you started when you're 1, you still may never draw just because of the creep.
Yep.
So they've started to kind of correct some of that. During that COVID push, they changed some rules.
Well,
like
I
if
think
you're going with an outfitter or not, and that's
right.
the nice part. Either A, you need to keep up on your legislation and look every year because it's not like they broadcast it to the world every time they change
Right.
one.
No, it's self-study.
Yeah,
Keep an eye on
Most of
that.
it is, right?
Yeah.
Most, and I think the one that caught everyone's attention, at least last year, Wyoming. What used to be, maybe it took 8 points to be in this unit. They just changed it, and I think I'm going to say this wrong, so I don't know that this is factual, but they're trying to get into the 10% model, right? So if there's 100 tags in a unit, 10% of them are going to get allocated non-resident, and that's it. But you start thinking about that, that's coming off of a true preference system where creep was coming in.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, a guy that's been planning that moose hunt for 15, 20 years, and he was statistically looking at it going, hey, at year 23, I'm going to draw. Like I'm a shoe-in to draw. That just changed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it might have doubled. Like he might be 50 years out.
yeah, that hurt
and-
a lot of people.
Oh, I mean, I
Like,
think everyone
people
was
were
wild.
cashing in points, knowing that I'm not waiting till I'm 102
Yeah, no kidding.
to draw this tag now, and I feel bad for them.
Right.
For real.
I don't disagree with the new system that they're going with. Like I get why they're doing it,
I think long term, it's a more sustainable system.
right? But it does suck for the guys that have been putting in and
Yeah.
playing that game and diligently every year at the right time, making sure that they put their points in so they don't lose points.
I mean, it makes me
Man.
sick thinking about the guy that was, a year away from the most premier elk unit or a bighorn sheep
Oh, my God.
or like I said, a moose tag out there's, like the Holy
Coveted.
Grail. Yeah.
Well, my brother and I were talking about this the other day. He's got 12 points, and he's like, I don't even know if I can get a tag now.
Right.
And I mean, 12 years he's been applying to go to Wyoming. I mean, building up points so he can apply for a kill tag, and
yeah.
now
It's kind of a kick in the
Wow.
junk, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, a little
Like,
bit.
oh man,
A little bit.
kind of deflate the balloon.
I think they did, and I'm going to say this wrong, but I think they did basically make it so that if you got a stack of points, they made it like a universal thing. You could then take them points, whatever. You were going after a bighorn tag, you can take those points and now move it on to an elk hunt or something. Like they did something to try lightening the effect, but anyway, I didn't mean to get all deep dive on the points, the goods, the bads, or whatever, but this is the time of year you need to start looking at it because, I mean, we are within 30 days of a lot of those systems going live, and most of them are a fairly short window. You might have 30 days to get in or whatever, but if you're looking to hunt out of your home state, you need to be diving into that now.
Yep.
The other thing I'd bring up on that point is reg changes, good and bad, depending on where you're going to hunt. This is the time to think about that. I remember Montana's the one that comes to mind. We couldn't even use lighted knocks out there for eternity, and now you can. So the reason I would bring that up is that practice starts literally in the spring, and you're shooting your bow the entire year.
Yep.
So I'm a mechanical guy, so I don't get too tore up with like going from a field point to a broadhead this early, but that lighted knock changes your total arrow weight.
Yep.
So I'm all about, running a lighted knock for practice
Yep.
year round
Yep.
because
Yep.
of that. But
Yep.
just something else to think
Yep.
or,
Agreed.
keep in the
Totally.
back
When
of
you're
your
going
mind.
out west and things like that too. I mean, that lighted knock with just people are like, oh, it's a lighted knock. I'm like, yeah, you don't see it in the Midwest in the deer woods because you're shooting like 40 yards. That's a bomb in the woods. You always say the stat. What is it, 18 yards?
Yeah, I think
The average Boone Crockett,
statistically,
like through
yeah,
every
70
deer.
What is it? 70,000 entries or something like that in Pope and Young, and the average shot distance recorded amongst those entries is 17 yards.
Oh wow.
That's off the top of my head, so I may be wrong.
Nah, it's right there.
Right there, yeah.
And you're talking like, but when you're going out west and you're thinking to yourself, okay, now I'm going to stretch this out a little
Yeah.
bit. You're antelope, for instance.
Right.
I mean, when's the last time you saw a guy shooting antelope at 10 yards? I mean, that's a tough one, unless you're in a water hole.
Yeah.
But like at 100, even in my setup, the difference between a lighted knock and a regular
Yep.
is about a foot.
Isn't that crazy?
And it doesn't start really noticeable until 60
past
and
it.
beyond. Like 60, you're like, man, I'm a couple inches low.
Yep.
And then it just escalates, and those types of things, or the field mechanical versus fixed.
Yep.
I mean, you're not just throwing a fixed on and saying, hey,
Yeah,
let's send it 40 yards, let
Right,
alone
right,
anything over that. In those western states, some outfitters that you may be drawing with that are going to require to shoot a fixed head, you better figure that out now.
Yep. You don't want to be last minute going to the old archery shop or pulling into a Shields. Or
Right.
Yeah.
Last minute. Yeah.
No, you just don't screw those on and go.
Well, I literally set a guy's bow up from scratch in elk camp last year. This is a true
Yes.
story. We were literally all out there, 6 of us, and 4 of us came together, and we had 2 guys we didn't know. And God bless the guy because he was a great dude, great to have in camp. But the reality is he couldn't hit. It was unbelievable. I mean, high dollar
scary.
elk hunt. Yeah, and this dude is all over the place on an elk target.
Oh, it's a big target.
Right, and I thought
A lot of room for error.
it's like golfing, right? You pay for the whole course, use the whole course.
Yeah,
But
right.
he and I could tell it was bugging him, and I thought maybe it was just nerves, other guys standing, the little bit of bantering that happens when you're shooting a bow. But the reality, he was all over the place. So he did finally say, hey, guys, I literally just picked this bow up, at Shields on my way out here. The guy had it paper tuned, and I mean, we won't even get into that, but I tore it down. I mean, to bare bow and started over, tune up, putting the sight on, getting his pins gapped, the whole deal. He did end up shooting an elk, so I guess that worked out, but boy, you talk about unprepared panic.
Yeah, boy.
We watched it. We seen it.
Well, and the mental game that it plays with
Oh,
everybody.
Lord.
Like when you know your stuff's on, you shoot a lot better. But actually, sighting your bow in my group always sucks the worst. And then once I'm like, okay, I'm good, I don't change anything on my bow.
Yep.
It's just you're confident. I'm going to aim there. I'm going to hit there, and your group just shrinks on its own because you're confident. And like when you're picking up bows and trying to do that stuff out west, not at home,
Freak me out.
man, I would have a tough time hitting an elk.
Trouble in the making.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable or confident in your setup that you have, oh lordy, and it takes a while to gain that confidence from your equipment.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna happen overnight.
Not only was it a brand new bow, it was literally plumb out of whack. Bad.
Yeah. That was so. That was one wicked. The paper was crooked.
Yeah.
The paper was crooked.
It was scary. It was scary. So, Joe, jumping over to you, you've kind of been sitting back there waiting to pounce on something. What do you got coming up through the ranks? You got a deer? You got 3 deer? You got to have something in the makings for this year.
I got my eye on a couple of them, a couple different locations. Yeah, they're still holding antlers, so keeping an eye on them and
Keeping
kind of
tabs.
keeping tabs on what they're doing, what they've been doing, and just kind of see how it transpires over the
See what shakes out.
next few months. Yeah.
What about you, Brandon? You're kind of like the monster catcher. You can't tell me you don't have some Boone and Crockett's tied to a tree just waiting for a arrow next fall.
Surprisingly.
There's a few that got away from me this year, and one was in Ohio, triple drop tine deer. Had them on camera every evening, and as soon as season, and I didn't even hunt early season, but as soon I watched them, wireless camera, boom, 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 and then about season came in, everybody else starts putting stands around and putting corn piles out in Ohio, and things changed really quick, and then
Vanished.
gone just like that. So there's a couple here in Wisconsin. There's a couple as well. It's always fun. You find the sheds and you just hope to goodness that they just blow up. And not every deer's going to just blow up to what you hope he does, but
Right.
it's always the, oh, he's there, then he starts splitting, then he's there. And it's like, whew, here we go. So there's always hope.
What a great way to answer a question and not pin himself to a big deer.
Yeah,
Always
they
hope.
gotta,
Well, I don't think either one of them want to let
No,
each other
like
know
you talked
exactly
about-
where the deer is.
Keeping
Right.
your poker face,
Yeah.
holy moly. Well, I hunt at
Yeah,
this latitude line, and
yeah. A wise man keeps his counsel, I've heard. So
right. That is fair. How about you, Trev? What do you got trouncing around on the Homily Estates?
Oh, we got a couple that made her through that they're going to have to blow up to be something
Special.
super special. We had a couple that were on the edge of maybe letting them go. I mean, they were great deer for the people that shot them. Yeah. You know, but
Fair enough.
and you know,
Yeah.
and
Tomorrow's
it's-
trophy today.
I mean, Gerpsey was listening to me on one of them. I mean, I went in to kill that deer, and it came up, and it was too young in my mind. And when it ran away, I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life because you know it's 21 inches wide.
Sure.
Running away, you know, you get kind of fired up. But,
Yeah.
That's a good angle if they're 21
oh,
inches
yeah.
wide.
yeah, I mean it's hard to pass those things up, but you know what you're going
Yeah,
for.
right.
There's I would say between all the farms that we have up there in Wisconsin, there's probably 3 that
Or on the hit
one
list.
of them will be minimum on the hit list.
It's funny that we're hit listing deer, and most of them haven't even dropped their antlers yet. But
I think
well, you know what I mean.
I think the key is though, and I know a couple different cats that play this game, and it can get really expensive. Matters how you play this, but you got to remember, you know, whether you own a piece of ground and you lease a piece of ground, or you might have a buddy's uncle that you can hunt their ground. Not every farm is going to produce a giant.
It's a fact.
One property might produce a 140-inch deer. Great. You know, he could be a 6-year-old 140-inch deer. Great. Awesome. Kill him. Mature. Awesome. Good for you. But not every farm is going to produce. And we'll go through years where you'll have lulls. You'll go through 5, 6 different leases of mine, and I won't have a damn thing over, 50.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, happens.
It's frustrating.
It's frustrating. Is all the time and effort and game plans you put in place and all the jigsaw puzzles you got everything set, and then it's like show up, and when they don't show up, it's kicking the balls.
Some of those farms we don't even hunt.
And some of the farms you
some
don't
deer
even,
don't show up there,
Yeah,
and
then you just
But you got to be
Pop in on the other
consistent
farms,
of what
yeah.
you do every year
Yeah.
to keep on improving the habitat.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that eventually there will be a deer.
Yes, absolutely.
Between now and a few years.
It's
from
just
now
a matter of time.
Not
yeah.
every deer is going to be a superstar, just like
Yeah.
the NFL.
Yeah.
It's,
yeah, exactly.
Nope,
everybody dreams about being the superstar. That's why you get these little 2.5 and 3.5-year-olds running around like they're drunk, thinking they can breed every doe in the world.
Right.
And then as soon as they get there, the 5.5-year-old steps
Says,
up and just
Whoa, hold up.
stretches, and they just run.
Right. Well, and Trev, you had a cool success story this year. I mean, yeah, you weren't the trigger man, but your nephew killed a deer that you had a lot of history
a
with.
ton of history on that.
Yeah,
thing.
and that was a
It's-
neat story. Actually, give it to us. I mean, I think this is a pretty cool success story, top to bottom, on the management side, the hunting side, getting youth involved. I mean, the whole thing makes sense.
It's I mean, we can go back to 2021. It was rifle season. I had that thing at 70 yards for over an hour.
The Gumby, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And anybody, I mean, a lot of people would have shot that deer. It's but there was a person in our party that was had a lot of history on it that wanted to really close the chapter.
Per se, it was his deer.
Yeah,
right?
and we kind of honor that, when somebody gets tore up with a deer to let them run with it. And then this year, the deer was just sporadic. He wasn't real.
But we're talking
consistent.
ancient. He was 5-6 years old,
Yeah,
right?
he was a 6-year-old deer.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't his range really sucked down. He was really, nocturnal, and it was. Oh, I can't remember when it was. It was later October. We got a great south wind that came through, and the night before, he came into the field 10 minutes after shooting light. And it got a little colder, and it was cloudy, and we got that southwest wind, which was great for this stand, and, told the guy, somebody's got to go there and kill this deer tonight because it's going to be there. One guy said, I got some other stuff to do, so we sent my 11-year-old nephew in there with my brother-in-law, and 10 minutes to go before season, here he comes, just walking right in. And, it was Chad and Sam were in there, so I don't know who was more nervous, my brother-in-law or, Sam shooting a crossbow that 2 hours before that, Kurt was, I think.
I gave a slight tutorial on how to properly cock a crossbow, yeah.
Because I was gone, and usually I help,
Right.
help those guys set up. And I get a text message. We smoked them. And I said, well, let's wait. And we're eating dinner, my wife and kids and I, and all of a sudden I see a bolt of lightning hit. And I'm like, oh, man.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
And here comes the rain. It just opened up the clouds. So we rush out there to see if we can find some blood and everything, and we jumped the damn thing 50 yards from where he was last seen. So we back out of there, and we know tomorrow it's going to be
A long
day. Grid searching day. So we had 5 of us out there walking all over, and we got done and got a dog out there, and that dog gets there and kept on going to the cornfield and then going off. And, through Kurt and I were talking to some other, I said, I just know that dang deer is in that cornfield. But, I mean, we're talking a huge cornfield.
Yeah.
100 acres of standing.
And no idea where he went in. So so this is day 2 now after it was shot, and I said, well, we're just going to have to get 10 of us going. And Marty that works for us, he's, goes, hey, let's just go fly the drone over it and see if it's in there. So we powered up the drone and flying over, and of course Marty forgot to charge the battery. So we saw a spot that looked like it was a little void, but then it started shooting back because the battery was so low. So we charged it up a little bit, got it back up again, and sure as shit, there's the deer laying, dead in the corn.
I'll be damned.
And you could tell the coyotes got to it because there was a big void from it being circled around. But then, so he runs out there and can't find it. He can't find it. We just were up in it. So then we had to get the drone back up again and guide each other
Right.
to the Marty had a cool picture of him finding it, and but at the end of the day, Sam really didn't know what he shot. Everybody else is freaking out. It was a 173-inch.
It's a big deer anywhere.
Yeah, boy.
And but it was a lot of sleepless nights. Sam was almost sick, like literally puking almost, because he was so upset that he lost this deer that we have so much history on. But the big man upstairs helped us. We didn't give up on it. That's the big thing is, you see these guys in Ohio now with the the thermals looking for deer, and everybody can have their opinion on it. At the end of the day, any legal means that the DNR and everybody gives us to get it should be able to do it. Utilize
Take
to
every
get
step
it.
you can
Exactly,
take, right?
because it's not just for the meat. It's just
Well, it goes
It's-
both ways, right? I mean, if the animal's alive,
Get out of
regardless,
there.
maybe you didn't hit it the way you thought you hit it, but
No.
just to confirm it's alive or to find it if it's dead,
Yep.
that's
You owe
truly
it-
should be the
You
priority.
owe it to the animal. Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
No, that's
Fascinating
awesome.
story, really.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, we did call the DNR to make sure we could fly it before
Right.
we did. So they were like, yeah.
Well, it was just a happy ending to a cool story. 'Cause
Yeah.
what a storied deer on your guys' farm, but I'm glad you guys got
I
him.
mean, we got more pictures of that dang deer, and I mean, a lot of sleepless nights for a lot of people.
Right,
but
right.
I'm the only one that really had a shot at it for like a 2-year stretch.
Which is insane.
And for one thing, I didn't want that deer to die with a rifle.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Totally. What about hunts coming up? Anybody got anything cool on the back burner for this fall or spring or?
Let's see. I got 3 preference points for Iowa, so
Ooh,
getting close there, I
there.
think.
He knows a guy.
I hope he knows a guy.
I hope to God
I
he
know a couple
does.
guys. We'll see how that plays
Yeah.
out.
It's a strenuous hunt. You don't want to do it.
Right.
You got to start working out.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
What about you, Trev? You got anything shaking?
Oh, well, we're going to Montana turkey hunting.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Big Miriam hunt. You haven't killed a Miriam yet, right?
No. And, turkey in the spring is kind of something I love to do. And, the boys from Drake Lamb and Philip Culpepper will be up hunting our farms up
The
in
Hunt
Wisconsin.
Club.
Yeah, and then we'll be going to Montana for elk and mule deer this year. And if I'm lucky enough to draw a Kansas tag, I'll be down there.
Shit, all of a sudden his schedule's starting to look like yours, Wickman.
Filling right up.
Oh,
I
boy.
like it. I like it. I like it. I got to work hard.
And then
play
what
hard.
else?
That's right.
I mean, I'll probably go on a couple duck hunting trips, in December,
Just a
January.
couple.
Just a couple.
Right.
Get that out of my system.
I want to topsy-turvy this little conversation we're having. How old are you?
41, damn near 42.
30s? 40s?
40s, 45, or I'll be 45.
It's as we mature and continue to deer hunt and chase whitetail. It's funny how the different feels that you have, the different. We talked about this before. Remember, we talked about growing up as kids, 10, 11, 12 years old, first opening day, family camaraderie. And then, brown it's down damn near, we're there to shoot shit. And then you get into your late 20s after you stacked a couple really, really good deer, and then you want to chase bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you kind of start more about the management side. You like planting food plots and designing and strategizing.
The chess game.
Yeah, the chess game. And then, after that, it's just a unique flow of how you go about this business, or your passion.
Well, you treat it like a business.
Damn right.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's
Winners win.
winners win. This is true. You ain't first, you're last.
That's right.
So
Hell, Bobby, I was high when I never mind.
not to get dramatic or anything, but it's always as you the longer you hunt, the more you respect it and appreciate it. And when I said you owe it to the deer to find it or at least do your best, it's because I don't think there's those diehards. They respect deer more than anybody, and non-hunters, anti-hunters, they'd never understand that. We hunt them, we kill them, but you know what? We respect those animals more than anyone.
Pretty
it means a lot.
special. Yeah.
Really.
I mean, when we go drive down the road, you see a dead buck on the side of the road, you almost start shedding a tear in your eye. It's like, what just happened? I mean, how big could that deer been? And somebody else is, why don't they get that thing off the road?
What they don't
Where did
realize
its
is
head go?
if it made it one more year, I would literally swerve direct my truck to hit it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, everything goes in cycles. Like you said, originally, everybody just wants to shoot them. Just shoot them.
Yep.
And then you're like, okay, that got through my system. Mm-hmm. All right, now let's see if I can shoot a bigger one.
Yep.
Okay. And you work through those stages of size.
Yep.
And then you go like, okay, size is cool, but that one's like 8.
Yeah.
I want to shoot that one because he's 8.
Right.
And then eventually, even like Travis, I mean, you could have shot Gumby this year. I'm like, man, let's see, I got an 11-year-old that I could maybe put on that. That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing that, and, you start going back
Yeah.
and getting that 11-year-old to be like, man, can I kill that? Can I shoot that? And then he starts that process and starts going through it.
Yeah.
But it's 99% of the people that would ever sit in this room and talk to us all do that same.
Oh, yeah.
Without talking about it, that's just how it works.
It's a life
It's
cycle.
a weird, it's always a cycle, and everyone's got that same one.
The weird part is Trav is now stuck in this 8-pointer fetish. And I've never seen anyone more tore up about killing 8-pointers than this guy. If it's mature and sporting a 4x4, watch out.
I got 2 of them. I got a couple nice mature 8-pointers.
That's its own podcast. Like when Trav told me he sat 40 hours
45.
in like dead silent, no deer Alberta. I think you were Alberta, right? Yeah. And he did. He shot a beautiful, big, mature 8-pointer. But I'm going like, dude, come on with it. Like, no, I couldn't do it. I literally couldn't do it. If they told me there was a 220 there, I could do it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do it otherwise. So
It's a long sit, boy.
I finished my continued ad.
at least he had Wi-Fi, right? Yeah.
For real. Wi-Fi. But I tell people I've, practiced QDM my whole life. In the beginning of my life, it was quantity. And now it's quality.
It's come full circle. That's funny.
When I was a kid, our buck pole in our shed, with all the hunters we had on our farm, one year there was 21 bucks hanging
Oh.
there. 21. And the biggest one might have been a 8-pointer.
Sure.
That was that
basket rack,
14 inches wide, and we drove it around all day.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we had a conversation not that long ago about just like everyone's got a little sadness to them because the traditions have changed through the years. The big deer camps and kind of the history that goes with that. And I think that's an Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan thing. Like it was everywhere.
It was.
The deer have got bigger and the traditions have got smaller.
Bingo.
Right.
Bingo.
I used to love to come to Wisconsin, and it wasn't even to shoot a deer.
Right.
It was just, okay,
Yeah.
we got a couple minutes left. I'll get out of the tree stand. Yeah, whatever. We got to get down to the check-in station quick.
Yep.
AKA bar.
we don't want to miss somebody that brought in a big one early, and they might be gone. So you rushed to get there.
Oh, yeah.
In Iowa, you'd have your deer camps, and it was camp. You didn't make the last run because it was time to go back and eat. And now those camps are all good, bad, or indifferent. You can look at it. So many different ways.
Yeah.
But that is like that old part that you do kind of miss.
I think it's coming back a touch, Gerpsy, just because people are more into there's a lot more people into archery, and they use the rifle season for their kids and nephews, nieces, brother-in-laws, family members that aren't as tore up into bow hunting as we are. That's where we use the tradition is the rifle hunting. I enjoy rifle hunting more now, and I really never take a gun out. It's usually with somebody,
somebody new.
Yeah, somebody new. This year we did a lot of doe management, and somebody's like, "Well, I haven't seen a deer all year. Hop in the side by side. We're gonna go shoot one."
Right.
Just because. I mean, if you shoot 20 doe,
That's a plus.
It's fun.
It's a good start.
If a kid is shooting a couple doe, it's that tradition.
Yeah. I think we all can agree. Even I can say like I have not killed a 200-inch deer, but I've killed a lot of deer in the 180s, and as like gratifying and like exciting and as memorable as it is, there's nothing that competes to them old back in the day when you were a kid.
Registration stations.
having chili with the family, night before gun deer season opener.
Just that anticipation.
Yeah, and hell, I couldn't even drink that time. I was still like 12, 13 years old. I wasn't even drinking beer. I mean,
Well,
it
you
just
were.
looked-
You
well,
were,
You were a year out. Yeah, he was a year out.
You were in Wisconsin.
Well,
you were.
If you're in Wisconsin, you were weaned down
Thank
there.
God those guys didn't drink them empty.
oh hell yeah. So it's just like I don't know. It's special, and I think what Travis mentioned, I could see a little comeback with gun season because so many people, and hey, I'm guilty. You know, you get your heart and soul set on a big deer. You want to chase a big deer. You want to kill a big deer. Everybody's different. I'm not going to tell the neighbor what he can or can't shoot. That's his prerogative. Pour it on. If it makes you happy, good for you, man. But you know, you can find different what levels, and you always got to step back and say, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
First of all, you know, and don't beat yourself up over it because you can get your positive mindset is everything especially when it comes to deer hunting because it can be wildly frustrating. So you always got to take a step back to say, what am I doing? Because this is why I love to do it in the first place. It's so easy to get fascinated and hooked on those right there.
Oh, yeah.
Big antler. And, you know, love it or hate it. I mean, it's when you love it, you love it. When you hate it, you can hate it.
It's like a disease you don't want to get rid
I'm
of.
telling you.
Yeah.
So I got a quick question for anybody that can take this.
Oh boy.
What kind of highlight would you like more? I'm trying to phrase this right. Sealing the deal on a deer that you've been chasing for 3 or 4 years, or the random 200-incher that comes by that you see once and you shoot it?
I'm going to take a stab at this only because I think the random 200-inch deer isn't even a thing anymore. And maybe the only exception to that would be like a random Kansas thing, right? You rattle and out of literally nowhere
the
here
thin
comes some
blue air, here she shows up.
But I'm to the point now where I'm a firm believer. I think once a deer hits Boone and Crockett caliber, and I don't care if it's a typical or a non-typical, you get to that level of, 170 plus typical, 195 plus non-typical. It's not random. Like the dudes that are hunting it are typically the ones that are going to kill it, and if they're not the guy killing it, they're the reason somebody gets lucky because that deer just got bumped or pressured out of an area or whatever. So that's kind of my stab at it. Like, so my answer to that would be the deer you've chased for 3 and 4 years and put some heart and soul and blood and sweat and tears. That's like the ultimate.
I mean, that's why we do what we do, not to have that sit up in the stand smoking your cowboy killer and drinking a beer and you shoot a 200-incher.
And if I could do that and shoot 200s, I'd be the first guy out there lighting them up. Trust me. Yeah. But that's just my take on your question because I personally don't think 200-inch deer die randomly, and damn sure not very often if they do.
Okay.
Just my take.
We going around the room?
Sure. Absolutely.
I'd take that deer that I've got history with. It's more. It's meaningful. It's gratifying. You get this. It's the pursuit, and then you conclude it. Although bittersweet when it ends, you can close that damn chapter, put them on your wall, and
start over.
Start all over again. Now, granted, trust me, that 200-inch deer, I'd love to kill that sucker. I'd love to, but I'm more the.
Dude,
there's no story behind it. That's what I mean. That's
which
simple.
would still be cool, boy.
Don't kid me. Yeah, don't kid me yourself. I'd love to kill that 200-inch deer, but this is all about the journey and the story put together, and that's what does it for me.
Yeah, that with the history of that deer and all the effort you put in, food plots if you're doing some of that, stands, hanging up, trying to figure out which wind directions, and then when it all happens, it comes together and you kill them. That's pretty good feeling.
Well, and the
and
discipline.
You can sleep
better
at night.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if they both walk in at the same time, I'm shooting the 200.
Jackpot.
Let's not. I'm not going to
Now
lie
you're
about
changing the
that.
question now.
Yeah. But wow. And then I'm going to go unicorn hunting tomorrow. Maybe
I'm
we'll
leaving-
find Sasquatch
And I'm leaving
this weekend.
next year's deer for
Under a
next year.
rainbow.
Yeah.
No, but you
Shit,
got.
there is a leprechaun at the end of the rainbow. Okay.
You didn't know that?
It goes back to what we talked about earlier. I think everyone at this table is at the point now in their life cycle of deer hunting that it becomes the chase.
Right.
the chase and the work that goes into it, and that deer's inches don't necessarily equal its meaning to us at this point. Its age does in the story. Like I'd want to call you guys and tell you about the story of how this happened. And if it's like, yeah, he walked in, I shot him, and it's not really a story. Like
Kind of sounds like my Iowa hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually going to relate it to his Alberta hunt. Who the hell drives 26 hours? Never mind.
But Kurt had history with that deer.
Right. Oh,
You know, so there's still a story with that
absolutely.
deer. Even though you're the one that triggered, he's the one that had the story.
And
so that
I
deer
picked where that deer was going to come out that night. I nailed it right on the head.
All I did was say, well, he's going to come out. He'll be the last deer on the field. He has a slight limp. I don't know what else I told you about him, but
When
He's
he crossed
blind
that,
in the right
when
eye.
He crossed that creek. We just sat
And
there
left.
and watched him, just in case something else
like had
came
a
out.
bad spat with CWD or EHD. You can't hear or see travel like that.
He had a walker. I asked that question because you could go to the Iowa Deer Classic, the Wisconsin deer shows, and ask that, and the answers you get, the people that say the 200-incher are the ones that are not doing the management.
Right.
I can
Oh,
almost
100%.
guarantee it.
Bingo. Yep.
It's the ones that go out
Yep.
there and
Yep.
with their buddy for opening weekend, and that's all they hunt.
Yep.
They're out there to shoot the 30-pointer.
Yep.
Not to seal the deal with a deer for after a 3-year quest.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
think that's just. I mean, and I kind
No,
of
I
knew
like how you brought that full circle.
what the answer would be in this room, but
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to throw it out there because I know if you randomly selected a bunch of people that were managers and non-managers, the non-managers would want that 200-incher all day long.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not that I don't want it. It's
No,
just
right.
if I had to pick my scenario,
But dude, if it was only about that, that magical 200-inch club, right? You could go hunt high fence every year and kill a 200-inch
Oh,
deer.
shoot, yeah.
if
You
you
know,
could pay
so,
enough
yeah.
to get on a 200-incher
Right,
and
right.
feel,
Or even in the wild. You're
in
right.
the wild.
You're
It's-
right. You can. And at least stack the deck in your favor. But it's such a, 200 gets thrown around pretty loosely anymore.
Yeah.
And I get it. There'll be a handful of them every year that go down regardless. But, dude, it's still, it's a unicorn, right?
Yeah,
genetically,
Right.
to get a deer at 200 in the wild is just, it's a freak of nature. It's 1 in a
Yep.
million or
Yep.
1 in 10 million, or I don't even know what the stat is.
It's like me getting a star roll on Baywatch.
Yeah, it'd be like Trav shooting a 10-pointer.
I did it in Kansas this year. I thought it was an 8.
I should lay off. I'm hard on Trav, but somebody's got to shoot these 8-pointers.
I
Trav.
texted my buddy from Wisconsin and said, I shot one in Iowa. He said, was it an 8-pointer? I said, yeah.
Just as excited as that, too. Oh,
great.
good. Well, this was fun. I love doing a little lighthearted or, really no purpose to a podcast other than talking to some buddies. This was great. But you guys got anything in closing? Like I said, we're off season, cabin fever, shed hunting's coming, turkey hunting's coming. Everyone sounds like they have a big deer or two to pursue this year. That's fun. That's kind of a wrap.
Just start the cycle all over again, boys. Let's give her hell.
Yeah.
This is the time of the year you hit the reset button.
Yep.
Charge
Start
the
back
batteries
over
up.
again.
Here we go. Well, thanks. Appreciate
Yeah.
it, boys.
Peace out.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Stand on Your Investment podcast presented by UC Hunting Properties and Expedition Land Management.